Well, if you have your Bible, let me ask you to turn to the book of Daniel. Let me ask you to turn to the book of Daniel, chapter 2. We'll read the first 30 verses. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. Then the king commanded that the magicians, the enchanters, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans be summoned to tell the king his dream. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn from limb to limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. But if you show the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and its interpretation. They answered a second time and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, we will show its interpretation. The king answered and said to them, I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time, because you see that the word from me is firm. If you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one sentence for you. You have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the times change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, there is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand. For no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious, and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then Daniel replied with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He declared to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree of the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the matter known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and requested the king to appoint him a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. Then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and insight. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste and said thus to him, I have found among the exiles from Judah a man who will make known to the king the interpretation. The king declared to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream that I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered the king and said, no wise man, enchanters, magicians, or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar, what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head as you lay in bed are these. To you, O king, as you lay in bed came thoughts that would be after this. and he who reveals mysteries made known to you what is to be. But as for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because of any wisdom that I have, more than all the living, but in order that the interpretation may be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind. And this is the word of the Lord. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Those are the words of Danish philosopher and theologian Søren Kierkegaard. Here lies, in this quote, a great source of worry, anxiety, and angst. God has designed reality in such a way that we can move up, down, forward and backwards, sideways in space. But we cannot do so in time. We cannot run ahead and see what is to come and then run back in order to act according to what we have seen. We cannot peer behind the heavy curtain of time to see the future. Because of this, many of us may experience difficult nights. We may experience great anxiety. We may experience great excitement. We can only predict, hope, and wish about the future. We can probably pray about the future, but we cannot do anything in order to see what the future holds for us. The book of Daniel is written by a man who faces a greatly uncertain future. And it is read originally by people who, surrounded by pagan kingdoms who do not know God, who are cruel and violent in their treatment of them, look into an uncertain future, not knowing what it will bring. We will see in this chapter that in a matter of days, chapter 2 teaches us a great lesson that would be helpful to Daniel, his companions, and the exiles in Babylon, and would also be helpful for us. The lesson is that we can face an uncertain future because God rules it. We can face an uncertain future because God rules it. We'll see how in this chapter the king responds with panic when he faces an uncertain future. This panic leads him to an attempted purge. Then we shall see how the servant of God responds in an opposite way to the king. So firstly, let's notice the actions of this king. The king has a troubled night. The king has a troubled night. The setting for our story opens with a sleeping king. And nothing notable here, just a king sleeping. Nothing to see here. But wait, there is an interruption to that sleep. The king's sleep is interrupted because he has, we're told, dreams. And now, for you and I, that doesn't seem like news. He had dreams, that's true. Everyone has dreams, of course, except my 6-year-old son, who tells me, whenever I ask him, what did you dream about? He says, nothing. I do not dream. But all of us, the rest of us, we do dream. But there's something particular about this dream that we can see from the effect that these dreams have on this king. We're told 2 effects that these dreams had. We're told the spirit of the king was troubled. And secondly, we are told that his sleep left him. You see, in ancient times in Babylon, a dream that a king had was no casual matter. It was believed that the gods spoke to their kings through dreams and visions in order to show the future of the kingdom. It might be the content of the dream or the fact that he cannot interpret this dream. What we know is that he is left bothered and agitated. As far as Nebuchadnezzar is concerned, his gods may have communicated something important about the future of the nation that he rules. He would have been embroiled in multiple number of wars. He is running a great nation. And here he faces something uncertain. He has seen a dream, and he does not know what it portends. But there's an irony in this picture, isn't there? Here is a great king of Babylon, who by this time has not just conquered Jerusalem, but also Assyria and Egypt. And he cannot get himself to sleep after a troubling dream. He is surrounded by guards. He lives in a highly protected palace. And yet he is shaking in his PJs. He controls most of the known world, but he cannot control his eyelids. And so while in his pajamas, the king commands, right now, bring to me magicians, enchanters, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans, all the civil servants who claim that they have been trained to know how to interpret such a situation. So they are summoned to tell the king his dreams. Within this squad of civil servants, you would expect to find all manner of abilities to read omens, to communicate and speak with the spirit world, to study the stars in astrology. They would have trooped in, probably several dozens of them, with several paraphernalia. Some guys dragging a goat, another guy's bringing a wooden board, another guy some metallic thing, and then another guy just walking in, pocketing because he has everything, cramming, another guy coming with a row of charts, and they're saying, bring it on. The fact that they seem to previously exist, as we see in Daniel chapter 1, verse 21, it seems that we're told in verse 21 that there were magicians and enchanters, among whom the 4 boys from Israel were added, and of course they were better than them, as we're told in chapter 1. But the fact that these people already existed on the king's payroll as civil servants shows just how much their skill was valued, and just how probably this was not the first time that they were needing to do this. This is what they had trained for. They had done schooling. The schooling that Daniel and his friends committed to would have been something that they have already completed. They have probably written the curriculum that Daniel and his friends studied. You have in one room all of the experience of people who, if you wanted to interpret a dream, this is the A-team. These are the people that you go to. These are the experts. And so we are told in verse 2, they came and stood before the king. It's highly trained, highly skilled individuals. And what follows is a dialogue that contains 6 exchanges between the king and these people. To show just how perturbed he is, the king states again that his spirit is troubled and he needs to know the dream. Verse 3, the king said to them, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but I have had a dream and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. The king is seeking to motivate them, to show them the importance. It is not a light thing for the citizenry when a king's spirit is troubled. In fact, the literal word there is that his spirit is struck, as if a hammer has fallen upon him. And he is startled. The wise men of Babylon are like, yes, tell us the dream. There's a step that you might have skipped, O king. After the niceties of, may you live forever, which if you know the rest of the story of chapter 2, you know how ironical that statement is. Nebuchadnezzar will not live forever. However, they say, may you live forever. Now, we need one ingredient in order for us to interpret the dream. You must tell us the dream, and we shall give you the interpretation. The king responds to this answer, but you sense that things have gotten a little more intense. He says, the word from me is firm. If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be torn from limb to limb, and your houses shall be laid in ruins. It's amazing how this troubled king takes the time to explain the means and method that he will use to kill them. He doesn't just say, I will kill you. He says, well, you see, I will start with your 4 limbs. And I will start with your 4 limbs so that the idea there is you will be alive long enough for you to feel the excruciating pain of the sentence that I mete out upon you. And then your house will be laid in ruins. That literally means your houses shall be turned into a garbage heap. And they say, but guys, but if you do, you shall receive gifts and rewards and great honor. The temperature in the room has just gone up by like 78. The king promises death or great rewards. The greatest threat, i.e. your life and your household, shall be taken away. Or the greatest reward, I will personally reward you. The biggest incentive. All this shows Nebuchadnezzar's desperation and the wise men's ineptitude. When the stakes are as high as it gets, you would think that they would somehow find a way to conjure an answer. That if they needed motivation, the motivation is not a problem in this chapter. They have seen Nebuchadnezzar do such things to other people. He is a cruel king. This gives us just a glimpse into life in Babylon. It could be comfortable and cushy. These people were probably highly paid and greatly respected. But the king's mood could turn on a dime, and you could be done away with. So what do the wise men do? They give the same answer again. And the king comes back. They say in verse 7, they answered a second time and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show its interpretation. Thinking that maybe the king didn't hear us the first time. Let's try a second one. But this time, the king comes back and says, I know with certainty that you are trying to gain time because you see that the word from me is firm. If you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one sentence for you. At this time, the king has completely removed the carrot and is only remaining with the stick. He accuses them of delay tactics and dishonesty. He is losing faith in their ability and gives them one final chance. He says, therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me its interpretation. He knew that the people, this Chaldeans and enchanters might hear the dream and come up with interpretations that would seem to fit what the king has said and seek to satisfy him, even though they would be lying. The astrologers and enchanters of this place would have tried and quote-unquote proven methods. That if you say you have seen this kind of thing in your dream, then that maps onto this other category that we have on our chart. And they would use these tools to combine images and liver colors and the blood and the color of the water and this and that and the pattern of the stars. And then they would say, oh, when you put this and that and this and that together, well, king, this is the interpretation. But Nebuchadnezzar is onto them. He's like, first of all, tell me the dream. And the wise men's response finally reveals what they really think. Their final response does away with the niceties, and they flat out inform the king that they are unable to do what he asks. There is not a man on earth who can meet the king's demand, for no great and powerful king has asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. The thing that the king asks is difficult, and no one can show it to the king except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. They are unable to do what he asks. As many commentators have mentioned, basically they're telling the king, you are acting crazy. No one has ever asked us. We do not have the facilities for that. Our technology has not gotten to that point. We are not gods. We are not divine. Only the divine, they admit, could do what the king asks. But there's a problem. Those gods are unreachable. Their dwelling is not with flesh. Those gods are beyond the reach and the realm of men. The author is trying to make one point to the exiles and to his readers. When it comes to the mysteries of the future, the mightiest kings and the wisest of men of this world are completely incapable of offering help. Here is a king who's greatly troubled, but he cannot do anything about it. Here are wise men greatly threatened, and yet they cannot do anything about it. All that this portends for them, all that an uncertain, unsure future portends for people outside God, is troubled spirits and defeated minds. The tactics of the magicians and enchanters, sorcerers and Chaldeans are exposed for what they are. Their failure to reveal the dream reveals the futility of their knowledge and skill. And as a result, the king orders a purge. His troubled spirit, his panic leads to a purge. As one way to put this is that Nebuchadnezzar is at war within himself. He is not at peace. And lacking peace within himself, he goes at war with the world. Isn't that the case, friends, in our own lives? Don't we often feel a fear gripping us, an uncertainty, a doubt and anxiety about the future? And that spirals out as war against others? Friends, let me ask you, how much of the conflict in your life right now is due to your reaction to an uncertain future that you face? Peter, when he speaks to wives in 1 Peter 3, tells them to love their husbands, submit to their husbands, and not fear anything that is frightening. As if to show that one of the main reasons our wife will struggle with submission is because she fears what the future holds. So it is with us as employees, as those under any authority. When we do not know what the future portends, we seek to take control of it. And we go to war. It is even worse when we are the ones with authority, as husbands and bosses, as those who wield some influence over others. When faced with an uncertain future, we could go to war. Friend, what do you do when you face an uncertain future? See, for Nebuchadnezzar, he knows that is what is in front of him. He says, something that is coming at me and I do not know what it is. How much of your brain power, how much of your mind space is taken up by thoughts about what you will do in the future, who you will be, what you will have, who you will be with? And how do you handle and steward those thoughts? Who do you turn to when it dawns to you that you do not control your future? Enchanters and Chaldeans may be long dead, but we still have horoscopes with us, don't we? Generalities that are written down in newspapers. Or maybe you have been tempted to turn to witchcraft. Maybe you have attempted to sinfully control other people as a way of controlling your future. Either seeking to manipulate or in order to please others through flattery. Or maybe to bring down other people in slander and gossip. Friend, all of us here are today facing an uncertain future. None of us knows what tomorrow holds or the day after. None of us knows what the next 5 minutes hold or this afternoon. And that could be disturbing. That could cause panic. Well, friends, I hope that we get to see here that any attempt to unravel the mystery of the future outside of the Word of God is futile. We cannot do it. We cannot peer into it, no matter how well trained or experienced we are. And so we come to verse 12. Because of this, the king was angry and very furious and commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be destroyed. So the decree went out, and the wise men were about to be killed, and they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. The violence that is ordered by Nebuchadnezzar gives us the setting to meet another man, Daniel, who faces an uncertain future. But where the king is plagued with panic that leads to a purge, Daniel responds with prudence and prayer, which leads him to praise. Prudence, prayer, praise. Notice firstly the prudence. We are told, then Daniel replied, verse 14, with prudence and discretion to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He speaks to the captain of the king's guard. You can imagine how interesting that conversation would have been. Oh, why are you here at my door? I'm here to kill you. Oh, why? No, he doesn't even ask him why does he want to kill him. He asks him, why do you want to kill me so fast? Why is the king's command so urgent? Do you have to kill me today? You have to get all this done? What's the timeline on your order to kill us? And Arioch is just this amazing guy. While he's holding the sword, he's like, well, you see, and then he explains the whole story. He says, well, before I tear you limb from limb, let me explain what the reason is. And this is part of Daniel's prudence being shown. What he is doing here is he is actually gaining time. This is his prudence and discernment, and discretion rather, being put to practice. He acquires more time. Thinking, we do not know why Daniel is not there in the first audience. It seems that they had been left out. And so that's what Daniel clutches onto. Well, you see, I have not had this. Can I get an audience with the king, and I will give him an interpretation? And he goes in to the king. He again lengthens the amount of time. He goes in, and we're told he requested the king to appoint him a time that he might show the interpretation to the king. Secondly, he prays. He prays. We're told in verse 17, then Daniel went to his house and made the matter known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, and told them to seek mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that Daniel and his companions might not be destroyed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Daniel goes in and speaks to his three friends. He told them to seek mercy. Daniel knows that knows who is ultimately in control. You may have expected him to have gone into King Nebuchadnezzar and asked Nebuchadnezzar for mercy. But no, he knows who the true king is. He knows that if he receives mercy from the King of heaven, he would have nothing to fear from the kings of earth. It is at this point, friends, that we do well to remember that these 4 boys have had 3 years of training in Babylonian and Chaldean astrology and reading of signs, that they are among the wise men. And yet, with all their education and experience, the first thing that they do is pray. There's great instruction for us there. That in moments of uncertainty in exile, often we find it easy to lean and run quickly to our well-tested and trusted experience. From that time that we did this thing, from that time that we heard about this person that had this situation and therefore they did that thing, often we leave prayer only as a last resort. But not Daniel and his friends. What they do is not flee. Is not open up and crack open the books. What they do is they pray to the God of heaven. And that's just an amazing statement, that they pray to the God of heaven. They had seen the temple of their God ransacked, and how Nebuchadnezzar had gone into the temple of God where people don't go. People would go and get killed in there. But Nebuchadnezzar not only goes into the temple of Israel's God, he goes in and he gets out. And he doesn't just get out, he gets out with stuff, which would have been a great symbol or picture of the defeat of the God of Israel. Daniel and his friends know that God is not just the God of Jerusalem or the God of Judah. He is the God of heaven. He is the God who rules sovereignly over all the kingdoms. He is the God who sees all things on the earth. He is the God who holds the circle of the earth in his hand. He is not limited by space. They are not outside the network coverage of their God. And so, they pray to him. They may be far from the place of God, but they are not far from God himself. And we're told then that after praying, Daniel went and slept. Don't look for that in your versions. It's not written there. But we're told that the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night, suggesting that after praying, Daniel went and slept, and God revealed the mystery. This mystery that had kept the wise men awake, Daniel receives in his sleep. What an amazing contrast between these 2 men. The king cannot sleep. Daniel, a servant, sleeps soundly. The king is greatly agitated and acts rashly, wanting to wipe out his entire cabinet. Daniel calmly acts in discretion and prudence. The king seeks to violently end lives. Daniel prayerfully seeks to save them. So God answers the prayers of the Israelites, and the prayer gives way to praise. And what we have between verse 20 and 23 is this great poem, this great hymn that Daniel wrote in praise to God. Notice several things about this poem. First of all, it shows that it is God who owns wisdom. It is God who owns wisdom. It says, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might." It is not the astrologers and enchanters, magicians and Chaldeans who own wisdom. It is not they who have insight, and it is not King Nebuchadnezzar who owns might. It is God. Secondly, He controls the future. Verse 21, notice the mighty divine agency of our God. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Everyone who reigns, anyone who ever sat on any throne, anyone who was bowed to, anyone who had a crown seat on their head, was only so because God placed them there. Nebuchadnezzar is not this sovereign, untouchable, unreachable king. He is only a pawn in God's great chess board. He changes times and seasons. It is he who rolls on the ticking clock of time. Time is just but a massive canvas that he's created on which he writes his own purposes and his will. He does not discover things. He does not stumble onto things. God does not come and learn new things about the future. God does not look down the corridor of time in order to see what will happen. He makes the corridor from beginning to end. Thirdly, he not only owns wisdom or controls the future, he knows all. He reveals, verse 22, deep and hidden things. He knows what is hidden in the darkness, and light dwells with him. These deep and hidden things, this darkness, Daniel is pointing out here things that are beyond the scope of the knowledge of men. Things that make men ponder, things that Nebuchadnezzar clearly had seen and peered into. Things that people's mind would never be able to unfold and wrap themselves around. Friends, our lives are full of deep and hidden things. There's great mysteries, great confounding things about our lives. Things that have happened to us in the past that we wonder, how will they influence our future? Complexities and layers, things that no one would ever understand. You probably have had something happen to you that you've wondered, I wonder how this affects me in the future. I wonder what bearing this burden. I wonder how having this proclivity, this idiosyncrasy about me that no one could understand affects my life. Beyond that, there's deep and hidden things in other people's lives. We do not ever learn, and not only just ourselves, but we never completely and fully learn anyone else. People are a bag of contradictions. They can say one thing and do the other. They can strongly believe one thing today and completely change their conviction tomorrow. Not only that, there's deep and hidden things in the universe. We are hurtling through a dark part of the universe with our sun at several 100,000 miles per hour. That's just a scary thought. You are not stationary right now. You are hurtling through the universe at several 100,000 miles per hour. Don't ever let anyone tell you you're slow, right? There's all manner of uncertain things. Every day things happen on the news and we ask, how could that have happened? How could that have fallen? How could that accident have taken place? How could that person have done that? All these are mysteries which, when you ponder, give you great anxiety. Shows you just how much you cannot control. You literally do not know. Let me tell you, do you know what is right now deep and hidden from you? What is happening behind your back? If you were to dwell upon this fact, there is much reason for great angst, panic, and anxiety. But God reveals them. He knows them. The light dwells with him. That means the knowledge of all things, of all minute things, all things big and small, all things clear and unclear, mysterious and unmysterious, are possessed by God. And finally, this God who owns wisdom, who controls the future, and who knows all things, gives these things to his people. Verse 23, to you, O my fathers, to you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might. You have now made known to me what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. What Nebuchadnezzar thought could be demanded from men, Daniel knew it could only be kindly given by God. And so it is. And so the story continues. Therefore, Daniel went in to Arioch. This praise that Daniel has just given to his God will not end with a poem, but it will proceed into the conversation with Nebuchadnezzar. Arioch goes back and tells the king that there is an exile who's able to tell the king what the dream is. He says, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king the interpretation. Arioch goes, and the king asks, are you able to make known to me, verse 26, the dream that I have seen and its interpretation? And Daniel continues his praise. He says, no wise man, no enchanters, no magicians or astrologers can show to the king the mystery that the king has asked. No one can see the future. No one can peer into it. No one can draw the curtain. Not even your greatly trained and skilled astrologers. Verse 28, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be known, what will be in the latter days. Friends, there you have it. In final conclusion, Nebuchadnezzar discovers that his answer was not going to be found by him looking horizontally. It was only going to be found by looking vertically, by looking to the God in heaven. Friends, why can we face an uncertain future? We can face an uncertain future because our God reveals mysteries. Please do not mistake what is happening here. God is not just, the Bible is not saying just that God reveals mysteries. It's saying God reveals mysteries because he rules over them. God reveals the future because he is there ruling over it. He is the God in heaven, which means he is the God who is not on earth, therefore limited by any physical limitations. He is not limited by time. He is not limited by the moods and the abilities of man. He is beyond all of it. He is the God who is in heaven. And so we can entrust our future to him. We can entrust our future to him because he is the one who created. We can entrust our future to him because he is the one who reveals it. We can entrust our future to him because he is the one who unfolds it. We can entrust our future to him because this God of heaven became a man on earth. Heaven not only came to earth, but eternity future broke into our time. Now we look to our past, even as we will remember in our communion today. We will look to the past, and from there be more certain about the future. Our future is ultimately secure. Paul, writing to the Colossians, chapter 1, verse 26 says, the mystery hidden for the ages and generations, has now been revealed to the saints. To them, God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of his mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Friends, we might face an uncertain this afternoon, or uncertain this week, or uncertain tomorrow. But our ultimate future is sure, is certain, because our God has revealed it to us. Our God has made known to us what is coming, and what is coming for us is glory, is this royal glory that he came and died and rose again to secure. Jesus came and took our sins and therefore removed our blindness. And now we are enjoined with him in expecting the glory that is to be revealed. We may not know the specifics of the future. This chapter does not end by us saying, "Oh, so now bring all your dreams and let's interpret them." In fact, we'll see that the specifics are not, when we come back to verse 31, that they're not the main point. The main point is that it doesn't matter what the future will bring, our God will be there. We are only headed for a bright future because of what Christ has done. Friend, if you're here and you're not a believer, there is no way that you can convince us that you don't worry about the future. There is absolutely no way. It has probably crossed your mind today. It has probably crossed your mind last night before you faded off to sleep. This we can tell you for sure. There is a future that is coming, and there's a king who will perform and execute a purge on all his enemies. But that king is a merciful king that you could trust in today, and you could be enjoined with us in this hope of glory. So believe in Jesus today. Turn away from your sin. Turn away from your efforts to seek to control your future. Turn away from your effort to build your own kingdom. For all things that you will build are all just teetering on the precipice. One day they will be destroyed. Instead, trust in the God who rules the future. Come and rest with us in the God who holds all of our tomorrows. As for the saints, we're reminded by Corrie ten Boom, never be afraid to entrust an unknown future to a known God. Our God has revealed himself to us so that even though we may not know what is there tomorrow, we know him. And he controls every detail of it. Let's pray. So, Lord, would you address our fears and anxieties? Would you push us away from panic? And would you move us towards a prudent, prayerful life that leads to praise? Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.